Mr. Zulkarnain Abdurrahim.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my reply will also address questions by Ms. Hani So and Mr. Sean Huang, which have been filed for subsequent sitting on the same topic. The Public Transport Council has released its recommendations on changes to the fare adjustment formula and mechanism to reduce volatility of fare adjustments while ensuring fair affordability for commuters and the financial sustainability of the public transport system. The government has accepted the PTC's recommendations. The new fare formula will be applied from this year's fare review exercise, which will be carried out in the later part of this year. There will be no changes in fares until then. The new fare formula replaces the network capacity factor with the capacity adjustment factor, NCF with C. Both measure public transport capacity, which benefits commuters through improved connectivity and faster journey times. The difference is that NCF was computed every year and factors in ridership alongside capacity. It is positive when capacity grows faster than ridership and negative when ridership grows faster than capacity. In its first 3 years, the NCF ranged from 1.6% to 3.9%. But the network capacity factor was not designed for situations such as COVID-19, when ridership fell sharply. As a result, NCF was suspended when it spiked to 50% in the 2021 fare review exercise. To reduce this variability, the PTC proposed C, which is fixed for the next 5 years at 1.1%. This reflects the actual and planned growth in public transport capacity from 2020 to 2026, largely arising from the opening of the Thomson East Coast Line, TEL. Aside from TEL, the capacity factor also takes into account short segments of the Northeast, Downtown, and Circle lines, which will open during this period. The Jurong Region line is slated to open from 2027 and will only be considered in the next fare formula review. The PTC opted to exclude ridership from C because of uncertainties in ridership recovery over the next few years, with changing commuting patterns and flexible work arrangements. While ridership at the system level is at about 90% of pre-COVID levels, the recovery has been uneven. For example, journeys to the downtown core are still at about 70% of pre-COVID levels, and ridership could be considered in subsequent fare formula reviews when ridership fully recovers. In the meantime, fixing C at 1.1% for the next 5 years will reduce potential variability in fares arising from the uncertain recovery of ridership. Whatever the formula, the government remains committed to keeping fares affordable. And that is why, on top of fully funding public transport infrastructure, we subsidize public transport operations at more than $2 billion every year, or, as I have said just yesterday, more than $1 for every public transport journey. As a result, households now spend a smaller share of their income on public transport compared to a decade ago. In addition to the broad-based subsidy that all commuters enjoy, more than 2 million commuters, 1 in 2 Singaporeans, including students, seniors, persons with disabilities and lower-wage workers, pay concessionary fares which are up to 70% lower than adult fares. And these groups either receive their concession cards automatically or are invited to apply for them. Monthly passes can help heavy users cap their public transport expenditure. For example, seniors can purchase a monthly concession pass for $64 to enjoy unlimited journeys on buses and trains for about $2 per day. Concession card holders can purchase a monthly pass at MRT stations and bus interchanges or through the Simply Go mobile app or website if they have upgraded their cards. Singaporean and permanent resident adults can similarly enjoy unlimited journeys by applying for an identifiable card and purchasing a monthly pass through the same means. The PTC had suggested that more could be done to raise awareness of these passes and prompt heavy public transport users who benefit from such passes to do so. The government will look into how to support this suggestion. Finally, when fares increase, the government makes available public transport vouchers to eligible households to help defray their higher public transport expenditure. Arising from the fare adjustment last year, 600,000 public transport vouchers with a value of $30 are available for resident households with monthly household income per person of not more than $1,600. 240,000 households that received a PTV from the previous exercise and continued to meet the eligibility criteria have automatically received their PTV via post. Other eligible households can apply online or at the community center. Those not eligible can also appeal online or at CCs. This information is publicized via posters in buses and public transport nodes. And I seek members' assistance to inform your residents as well so that more can benefit from these schemes.
Mr. Zulkarnain.
Thank you, Madam. Firstly, I thank the Minister for the clarifications. I also wish to thank the members of the PTC led by its chair, our NMP, Honourable Ms. Janet Ang. I think the work that they have done to make sure that the fare remains fair and equitable for all. I have my excuse, given the connectivity plans for the future lines and the projected increase in ridership, does the Ministry foresee that the current transport subsidy assistance schemes available be tweaked further? For instance, increasing the PTVs or maybe have a more calibrated approach to the PTVs as I had suggested in one of my PQs. For instance, for those who do not qualify or strictly for the PTVs, maybe a smaller quantum, less than $30, be provided to cushion the impact of any projected cost of increment. Thank you.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for his questions. His first point was, his essential point is whether transport subsidies, and I think by this he means specifically for commuters, whether this will be increased, given that we are increasing the scale. So if I may, as a starting point, reiterate that in the provision of public transport in Singapore, our aspiration has always been to raise the quality and accessibility, to, at the same time, make sure that it is affordable for Singaporeans, and at the same time also ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the provision. This is essentially the triangulation that the PTC seeks to achieve through its recommendations and the government seeks to attain through the implementation of various policy measures. Having said that, in terms of the level of subsidy that we accord public transport, it's at different levels. The first, and at the systemic level, is what we do for buses and trains. And I have said this before and also earlier. Today, we provide about $1 billion each for buses and trains by way of subsidy from the government. I would add that any fare increase that is not implemented is also rolled over, and that adds to the subsidy or the support that is accorded public transport from the from the government's public purse. So last year, because we deferred a significant portion of the fare increase, we now have another $200 million of such subsidy. It's a fare deferral consequence. So that's at the system level. Secondly, we have provisions for targeted assistance, and that's what I was elaborating earlier, whether it is concession fares, where there's a normal adult fare, and then those who hold those concession cards can pay at a reduced rate. And also there are the cards which you buy in order to have the season passes, if you like, which, as I explained, for example, for senior citizens, it's at $64 at this point, which is approximately $2 a day for unlimited travel. So we do that for seniors, for persons with disability, for low-income workers, for students, and so on. And then finally, when there is a fare adjustment made, in other words, a fare increase, we, in tandem with that, typically implement public transport vouchers or issue them, especially to help those who are in the more vulnerable brackets. And that's what we did in the last exercise. To the member's question on whether there's scope to increase or enhance the support that is accorded, I think that is an area that we continue to work on across all three levels. So whether it is in terms of the systemic support through subsidies, through the targeted support that we do through concession fares, etc., and also through specific moves in tandem with any fare adjustment through public transport vouchers. And we are continuing to see how we can improve this to better meet the needs of specific groups of commuters.
Ms. Haniso.
Thank you, Madam. And thank you, Minister, for his reply. I have one SQ and one suggestions. The SQ is in relation to whether the ministry has been tracking in terms of the redemption rates of the concessions, our monthly passes and public transport vouchers respectively. Are we beginning to see an uptick trend in terms of these applications and approvals from pre-COVID to post-COVID period? And the other point in relation to the suggestions as to increase more awareness and providing more help is that whether we can explore to train the relevant staff at the respective train stations where members of the public commuters applies for the concession passes can also inquire in relations to the availability and applications of the public transport vouchers.
Madam, I thank the member for her question and suggestion. Whether we track, I think, so concession, because basically this is a function of, how much the concession card holder uses, whether it's a train or a bus, because every time they use it, they get the discounted fare as the way they, in terms of that's the concession card formulation. And I don't have a precise number, but I think in ex ante, as I've said, our public transport ridership is still sort of recovering from the COVID pandemic. We are now at about 90% of the pre-pandemic level, and it also is a quite variegated outcome, because when you look at the downtown core, the recovery is lower. But when you look at, say, some of the heartland areas and the industrial areas, it's much stronger. I think it's a reflection of changing habits and work from home, etc., and so on. So we need to see how this thing pans out. But specifically then, what it means is we think the usage patterns amongst some of the specific groups like seniors and so on has recovered in tandem with this overall rise. And I'd be happy to give more specific response if the member wants to file something more precise on that. Then on the issue of take-up rates of the PTVs, as I said, they work in different tranches. One tranche is when we just send it out by post to all those who were previously eligible and continue to be eligible, and they get it automatically. Then there's a second tranche where they can apply, and the application can go to, through the website and also to the CCs and so on. And then the third tranche is when they make appeals, etc. So our take-up rates are, I know that they're quite significant. We were quite generous in providing for these PTVs in the last round, 600,000. And the reason was because of the combination of both the fare increase and the circumstances, the economic circumstances. It's not fully taken up, but I know that more than half and quite a significant proportion have been taken up, or in that order of magnitude. The key point is we are ready to help, not just as a first cut, but also where there are instances where additional help is needed. We are happy to look into this and render the necessary support. And on the point about staff being well trained, I agree with you fully, with the member fully, and that's why we do emphasize this. It's not just about how you can access concession fares or PTVs and so on. That's one important element. It's also about things like inclusivity, rendering assistance to those who may have difficulties moving around, information on wayfinding, etc., because these things are important complements to what we already do through the infrastructure. So the member's point is well taken, and this is an ongoing effort to improve the frontline service level that we have in our public transport system.